In today's show, we are looking at the Dallas Mavericks from a Dynasty point of view. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode also brought to you by the guys over at Built Bar. Go to builtbar.com, the best tasting protein bar ever. Use the promo code Locked On and save $10 off your first order. Today, getting into the Dynasty watches here in the Southwest Division. Last time we did the Houston Rockets. This time we are doing the Dallas Mavericks. So let's talk about those Dallas Mavericks and where else can we start apart from Luka Doncic, who is, of course, unbelievable. The 11th ranked player so far this season. He missed a little bit of time with an ankle injury. He played 54 games, 29 points per game. He averaged over 9 rebounds, almost 9 assists, a steal, 46 from the field, 75 from the line, and 32% from three. He is a first-round player already. He was obviously the best player in that draft class. He was obviously the best dynasty prospect in that draft class. I didn't think he'd necessarily be this good already. I thought he was going to be a top 20 player this year, which he is, but he is pushed into the first round. He's going to be a first-round guy for years to come, and he can get better than this. Now, I guess if we look on the negative side of things, the shooting numbers for him dropped back off. And one of the big concerns we had last year was the free throw shooting, 71% overall, and then it dropped off at the end of the year. This year, he's at 75% overall, but his last 20 or so games, it's 67%. That's a worry. And on such big volume, that brings him to not be a top 30 player overall. Now, of course, if you're just going into your team and considering free throw percentage as maybe a wash or a punt category, then he's top 4 or 5. There's no concern about that. But he does have that ability to be a good free throw shooter, but that end season drop off in percentage is something we've got to watch. He can also be a better three-point shooter. He was at 33 last year. He's at 32 this year. He improved his two-point percentage from 50 up to 57, which is an astonishing number. He's still only at 58% true shooting. He needs to push to 60, 61, 62, and then he is that top 5 guy. I do have faith in it coming. He's already got the free throw volume. That's fine. Rebounds and assists, fantastic. Great three-point volume, massive usage. 37.5% usage for Doncic is a ridiculously good number. He is one of the top players in the entire NBA in PIPM. He has a plus 4.88. He's huge in the on-off stuff as well. We know how good he is. I think we should know how good he can be. He's got future number 1 overall fantasy player, not in the bag, but almost a definite potential for him to get there. I think there's a risk of him being a little bit overdrafted maybe next season. The steps he needs to take forward are in the free throw percentage and the three-point percentage. That's where he needs to take those steps forward. Because realistically, 29, 9, and 9, like how much better is he getting there? Can he be a 31 point per game guy? Maybe. That's not a crazy thing to think, especially if the shooting numbers come up. Can he go from 2.9 triples to 3.3? Yes, quite easily. But it's going to be going from 75% to 82% from the line. It's going to be going from 32% from 3 to 37% from 3, which pushes his field goals up to 48, 49, and the free throws pushing up, your true shooting at 62, and then he's your 5th, 4th, 3rd, second best player. Have no worries about this guy. I think, number 1 overall dynasty asset in the entire NBA. Giannis is great. Karl Anthony Towns is fantastic. But Doncic is 21 years old. You have got minimum 7 years of this at this level, and probably better. Probably more realistically 10 years of this sort of production to go. Like, unbelievable stuff from Doncic. I knew he was going to be good. I knew he was going to be probably an all-time great. I didn't think he'd be this good and this quickly. Exceeded my expectations pretty comfortably. And so when I say, where else can he get better at, I don't look at him and go, yeah, this is it, because he's already taken that step. Like, what's the next step here from there? And to me, it is those shooting numbers, which, again, troublingly, did drop off as the season went on. That needs to improve for Luka Doncic. The next bloke.
Porzingis.
Yes. Kristaps Porzingis took all of last year off rehabbing from that knee injury, came back, and has been the subject of a lot of criticism this season. He's still the 36th ranked player over the course of the year, averaging 19 and 10 with over 2 blocks, 2.5 threes. True shooting's at 54, so like Doncic, that's some concern there in terms of those shooting numbers. But he's really, really good. I don't think we need to be too concerned about Porzingis. He's not far behind Doncic in PIPM, plus 4.22, because defensively, the numbers are super strong. He's second on this Mavericks team in on-off, behind, amazingly, Tim Hardaway Jr. The games when Doncic doesn't play, Porzingis goes out and puts up absolute monsters. And we can talk about, I'm worried about his knee injury. Look, he takes all these games off. He missed, before he hurt his knee on the end of the year, New Year's Eve, he missed one game. He didn't sit out any back-to-backs. He didn't sit out random games. And then he had that slight problem over the start of January, end of December. And then they were cautious with him sitting out back-to-backs. It wasn't the thing they were doing. I think this is really important to know, because people will look at him and go, well, this is just Kawhi Leonard. It's Russell Westbrook. He's going to sit out every back-to-back. That is not true. He sat out one game against the Grizzlies at the start of the season, and then he didn't sit out any other games. Through that, he played a back-to-back in December. The Mavericks had 2 back-to-backs in December next to each other, the 3rd and the 4th, and the 7th and the 8th. He played all 4 of those games. He played in those back-to-backs, and even before he got hurt, it was a back-to-back against the Warriors and Lakers, and he played in both of those games. Yes, the minutes were a little bit smaller, but he still played in them. So this is, again, they were being cautious with him, and then the knee injury happened, and they went a little bit more extra cautious. Really, really strong numbers from Porzingis. Of course, we saw those explosions when Doncic was out, where he was putting up 30s and 12s, 35 and 12, 38 and 12, 32 and 12 in 3 consecutive games. And in the last 2 of those, he had 11 triples. He's banging in threes. He's blocking a shit ton of shots. He has been ridiculously good. Over the last 10 games, he was the 13th ranked player. There's no reason he can't be a top 25 guy with Doncic playing. And if Doncic, for some reason, is hurt, he will be a top 15 guy. Really strong stuff from Porzingis. He is still not even 25 years of age as well. This week, it's the perfect time for you guys to check out the fantastic, best-tasting protein bars at Built Bar, because not only when you use your promo code Locked On and get $10 off, that's there, that's always there. But this week, Memorial Day special, an extra $5 off per box. So you can be saving $15 on a box of 18 Built Bar protein bars. They are the best tasting protein bars you can find. They are great tasting, 100% real chocolate covering them, and they're low in calories. You're talking about bars at 170 calories, 110 calories. You compare to some of the other ones you see, which are 250, 300, absolutely loaded with sugar. 3 grams of sugar in some of these bars. It is unbelievably low. And Built Bar, to go along with this $5 promotion, this extra $5 off this week, 4 new flavors. Peanut butter banana, pineapple upside down cake, that sounds fantastic to me. Coconut pecan pie and blueberry lemon, the 4 new flavors to go with their already existing 16 flavors, of which 8 are nut free. So go to builtbar.com. They are the best tasting protein bars that you can find. They don't taste like ash and dirt and soil. Not that I know what those things taste like. It's what I imagine them to taste like. They taste like real candy bars. Builtbar.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. Save $10 off, and for this week only, an additional $5 off per box of protein bars. Builtbar.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. Let's go on now to the next player on this list, and it's Willie Cauley-Stein. I am notoriously lower on Cauley-Stein than most people. I didn't like what he did in Sacramento. I was cautious of him with Golden State. I was absolutely out on him going to Dallas, and I think that's been proven. No, I think it has been proven absolutely 100% correct, because he just hasn't played for Dallas. They just don't use him. He's played 157 minutes in 13 games after the trade. He is an absolute afterthought in Dallas. He's not an every night part of the rotation, and when he plays, it's like 10 or 12 minutes. He's just not that good. Now, I will give him credit. This season, he was able to improve his block rate, which had been abysmally bad the last 2 years in Sacramento. He was blocking a lot more shots this season. And still, despite the struggles that he's had, he's the 152nd ranked player, which is nothing to sneeze at, in only 20 minutes. And if his per minute production on his really improved field goal percentage and block numbers was able to stretch out and play 27, 28 minutes, he'd be a top 100 player. Unfortunately, he was playing on the Warriors, where they had no other good players, and he couldn't get more minutes than 20 a game. And then he went to Dallas, who'd lost Dwight Powell to a season-ending Achilles injury, and still couldn't get minutes. And that is what the concern, and that's what we're looking at with Dynasty. We can say, yeah, well, when he plays, he puts up good numbers, and that was absolutely true this year. It wasn't true in Sacramento because he played those minutes and didn't put up good numbers, but it did change this season. But when you're in two situations where teams need centers and you barely play, when we're looking long-term in Dynasty, we're looking at, will this guy actually be in the NBA in 3 years' time? And I have my worries about Cauley-Stein because, yeah, while he did improve defensively with the shot blocking this year, there's no denying that, and it was impressive to see. Is he good enough? Do teams actually want this guy to be a player that they want to have even as a backup center? He's not quite 27. He's getting there. He averaged 7 points and 6 rebounds with a steal and a block on 58% shooting in 20 minutes. So these are not great numbers. Improve the block rate, no doubt. But a bit part player in Dallas, I don't know. Remember, he only signed for like a very, very small amount for Golden State as well. So it wasn't a high in-demand center. I think you might have 2 years left as being a rotation-adjacent player. As a starter, only in absolute emergencies, I would look at Cauley-Stein, and I think I'd be pretty... If someone believes in him and thinks, well, look how good he was for the Warriors, they just need to give him more minutes. If there's anyone out there who believes that, then I would be offloading him for sure. And I don't think that this 152nd ranked we're sitting on with Cauley-Stein for this season is going to be something that he's going to be able to repeat in the future. Jalen the Burner Brunson. I was pretty impressed with him at times this season. Now, at the beginning of the year, there was a real question mark. Who was going to start next to Doncic in that alignment? Was it going to be Delon Wright? Was it going to be Jalen Brunson? Was it going to be Seth Curry? I didn't even really consider Tim Hardaway an option there, but he has been absolutely impressive this year in that role. And kudos to him because he was shithouse for 2 years, but really, really impressive in that role. Brunson and Doncic together didn't necessarily work as well as I would have hoped. But when Doncic got injured, Brunson started and he was really good. His PIPM is a marginal negative 2.1. On off, he's at a plus 0.2. The numbers, as I said, alongside Doncic they weren't as impressive. He didn't really find that way to fit. And it can be hard when you need the ball in your hands to be able to put up those numbers next to Doncic, who rightfully so is dominating possessions when he's out there. Brunson played only 18 minutes a night this year. That's down from the 22 he played last year. He averaged 8, 2, and 3 with half a steal. On a per 36 basis, he did improve his assist rate up from 5.2 to 6.6, so that's encouraging. He improved his scoring. His shooting numbers, they went from 54.9 to 55.3, so basically the same, and shot 36% from 3. He's just really, really steady out there on the court. He is a fine guy to start when Doncic goes down, and in his 16 starts in 26 minutes, he averaged 12, 3, and 5, which is solid enough. 92% from the line, really good. 1.3 triples. You know, these numbers they're not spectacularly good, but I would say that they are solid enough that if he's in a spot where he starts, in that sort of a situation where Doncic is out, then you add Brunson in those scenarios. Can he be a guy that can push, and this is the key for him, to play 25 minutes a night when Doncic is healthy, be that JJ Barea guy off the bench? That, I guess, is the concern there. Like, is he able to do that? And that is the thing that we've got to work on with him. Now, when they played together, it was 202 minutes this season, Doncic and Brunson, which is the key factor here. They were a +5 during that time, which I think is something that is important to know. Brunson's true shooting was only at 50 and a usage of 14 in those minutes. So I guess that is somewhat of a concern, that he just wasn't shooting well in that off-ball sort of a role. The assist rate was really, really low, 11.4%, which is a lower assist rate in those minutes than Porzingis had in the same time frame. And that's a concern when Porzingis is getting assists and you're not. So that's the worry. How does he coexist with Doncic moving forward? But I do think that he absolutely has some starting point guard ability. If he was a starting point guard, he'd be the 25th best starting point guard, 26th best starting point guard. Put him on the Knicks and he starts and he's a really good starting point guard there. But that's not what's going to happen here in Dallas. So what we should be looking at Brunson is, I'd say a couple of top 150 seasons would be my best guess for what he can do in the future. I think that it is just going to be about, can you work alongside Doncic? And there is some signs of being able to do it, but more likely he's going to be a stream in-out guy, a guy you hold in deeper leagues who has multiple top 200 years, and maybe he can get to be a 4.5 assist guy in 17 or 18 minutes. But I think at the very minimum, he has locked down a backup point guard role here in Dallas, and that maybe will be able to push forward at some point. Justin Jackson's really not a good NBA player. Let's just put that out there. He played 58 games this season. He played 16 minutes a night. He shot under 40% from the field, under 30% from three, and in true Jackson fashion, did absolutely nothing else in any other area. Defensively, he was bad. Offensively, he was bad. He has the worst PIPM on this team by a significant margin. In fact, double the next worst one, which is JJ Barea at minus 1.23. He's a minus 6.7 in his on-off numbers. That's rough. It's not the worst because a guy by the name of Delon Wright had a horrendous number, and his fit in Dallas was pretty rough. I'm not going to talk about Wright today because he is a little bit older, but he was a massive disappointment. He absolutely did not fit alongside Luka Doncic, which is a concern. But again, he's one of those players, this is Delon Wright, that when Doncic goes down and he gets into a bigger role, he can have those flashes, but it just was not the best situation for him at all. Justin Jackson, he's not good. He's never been a top 300 player in his 3 seasons. He's been a rotation player, inexplicably, for all of those 3 seasons. He gets no rebounds. He's never had a season of over 3 rebounds per game. Let's actually go to per 36 numbers. He's never had a season of over 6 rebounds per 36. This year's his best at 5.5. His best assist per 36 is 2.1. That's horrendous. He's never been over 0.7 steals per 36. That's gross. He's never been over 2 free throw attempts per 36. What is this? What are we even doing with this guy? Why is he still in the NBA? Because he was a first round pick a couple of years ago? Pick 15? No, he's not good. Don't have any faith in him. He's 25 already. He is not good. He is not a hidden asset. He is not someone that we just needs an opportunity. He's had the opportunities. He's bad at it. We're 3 years in. He's done. Don't even worry about him as any sort of long-term fantasy option. And I couldn't stress enough how much I'm out on Justin Jackson as a player. Apologies to Justin and his family. Let's go on to the next guy, Antonius Cleveland. We didn't get to see a huge amount of Cleveland in the NBA this year, just the 6 games. He is 26 years of age, Cleveland. A wing sort of player. Now, he did play, he's 6'5", shooting guard they're claiming. He's more of a 3 than a 2. He played for the Texas Legends, 31 minutes a night, averaged 14 and 7 with 1.6 steals. And that's the steal numbers over his G League career in 85 games. He's averaged 1.6 steals per game. That's a pretty strong number. 34% from 3. Now, that's only limited attempts, but that's, I guess, marginally encouraging. But he's lost the ability to hit free throws somehow. But what he is, he's a 3-and-D wing without really the 3 in the volume that we want. But there is always going to be room for that. Now, I don't understand the Mavericks cutting someone like Ryan Broekhoff, who's a 40% plus 3-point shooter, to keep guys like Cleveland or Kid Gilchrist or even Justin Jackson around. It makes no sense to me. These guys are not NBA level players. I think Cleveland's got more of a shot than Jackson to be a rotation guy, because at least he can be a strong defender, which Jackson's never been able to do. But will he ever get the opportunity to get in enough minutes to be a 15-minute regular rotation guy to get those steals? Because I feel those steals will come regardless. He needs to be a Diane Finney-Smith type player who turned himself into a solid enough shooter that his defense actually can get on the court and be important. And I'm not totally writing off that chance of Cleveland getting into that role. It's limited. I have way more faith in him than someone like Jackson, but overall, I think the chances of Cleveland being some sort of impact NBA player or even a regular rotation guy are pretty limited until that 3-point shooting and free throw shooting gets fixed. He shot under 30% from 3 in the G League this year. He was at 36 the year before that, but 61 from the line, 71 the season before that. They are the concerning factors there. And if he can't be a good shooter, then he's just not going to be a player that stays on the court very much. I like this next guy quite a bit. I liked him in Summer League quite a bit, Josh Reeves. We have seen 2 minutes of him in the NBA this year. So that is, obviously, we can't get any sort of idea from those. So not even 2 minutes. It's barely 1 minute we saw of him in the NBA. Like, that means nothing. In the G League, he played 31 minutes a night. He started every game for Texas, but he averaged only 14 points. And like Cleveland, under 70% from the line, 33% from 3. At least he hit 2 a game, but that volume's not great. 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. That's the number that gets me interested, the 2 steals. and pair that with what I saw from him being really energetic at Summer League and being a guy that could handle the ball a little bit. The assist rate's not massive, and in fact, he gets more turnovers than assists, which is a concern. Defensively, there is some ability there, and I feel a bit more confident in him turning into a 3-and-D wing than I do with Cleveland. Can he get there, though? Now, he's only 23. He's a two-way guy. I think they'd like to bring him back for one more season. There's going to be openings on this roster when Courtney Lee and JJ Barea are gone, because they're not going to be around forever. And I think he can slide into that role, get a full-time contract, be the 12th or 13th man, and then push into a larger role. I think there's a possibility. I'm not out on Josh Reeves developing into a 10th man in a rotation with his ability to defend and be a three-point shooter. Now, those steals and threes, he can be a 1 steal, 1 3 per game guy in the NBA in 15 minutes, which has deeper league value. I would not be writing him off for those deeper leagues. There is still ability there. We just haven't seen it at all in the NBA, but someone that I would not be completely getting rid of. The last guy I want to put on this list here is Diane Finney-Smith, who worked his way into a strong rotation role. Now, I thought it was important to mention him. He is 27 years of age, played 30 minutes a night, but he is in no area a good fantasy player. And that is the concern we have with Finney-Smith. 169th ranked player, which gives him some deep league value. Now, why did he get to that level? Well, nothing. He does nothing actually well. He's average in threes, average in rebounds, average in blocks, average in field goal percentage, average in free throw percentage. Like, just really average. A massively low usage. A guy that impacts winning, I think, in a pretty strong way. Plus 1.48 in his PIPM, plus 4.2 on off. Really strong numbers. But he is never going to be a guy, to me, that in fantasy can ever push into that top 100 zone despite being a starter. Can he have some top 100 seasons? Yeah, I think that's a possibility of him getting into that area, but I'm not totally convinced of that with Finney-Smith, but he is a rotation guy, and that is important to know, and I thought it was important to mention him here. That'll do it for me today, guys. Don't forget, check out our sponsors, Built Bar, and subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.